Hey everybody, welcome to episode 44 of Radio Free Ortona. And it's going to be a short one today because Trent's got a hard out in an hour and 15.
And Patty screwed up the entry. So
Yeah. And we don't even know what we're talking about. So hey, here we go.
yeah, what the hell are we talking about?
Well, I was talking about a name change.
A name change?
Yeah.
Like you're changing your name.
for the podcast.
What do you want to change it to?
Based on some of the discussion we were
This hour of digression.
having last night. Radio Free Digression. Or
This hour has 22 digressions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, no, way more than that. Well, 22 an hour. That's actually accurate.
I was thinking Radio Free Discourse, and Steve was like, "Well, let's go Radio Free Digression."
Radio free digression.
Well, because I've always said that Radio Free Digression is probably the better name for
This
it.
is not something to be proud of, gentlemen.
Yeah.
That it makes us look like a bunch of ADD,
Adult.
refugees. Yes,
Yeah.
unable to keep a coherent string of thought together.
But
We can.
that's who we are.
We do.
You know what? You know what we should do? We should start doing interviews.
I know, we need to get guests.
Yeah, we should have more guests.
We need guests on the show.
Yeah,
For sure.
like and like not like us, but I mean like interesting people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I find you guys mildly interesting.
No, you find us fascinating.
In like the Mr. Spock kind of way.
I was going to
exactly.
say from a Mr. Spock kind
yeah,
of
yeah, exactly.
kind of perspective, yeah.
Yeah, you walk out here saying fascinating.
And it's not that I don't like the name Radio Free Ortona. It means we love it for our own reasons, right? But I mean, I don't even know if this is.
I don't know if our title, if the title of our podcast has to really mean anything other than
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe
identifies
there's a benefit in not meaning anything at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe.
All
So,
right. Anyways, I just threw it out there.
yeah. Okay.
The other thing we haven't talked about Israel in a long time.
Okay.
And for me, there is a cascade of subjects that come from that that are all relevant. So
Yes.
Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran,
Yeah. Syria, the new offensive.
Russia, Ukraine. Right?
I understand Bassad has fled to Moscow. Is that true? Have you guys heard that?
I haven't heard
Assad?
that.
Yeah.
No.
Bashar al-Assad has fled.
It could be. John was talking about like in the last 24 hours.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had Trent's birthday party last night, and
Yes.
our returning and only guest, John, was also in attendance. And he was talking about how one of the Turkish-backed militias just took Aleppo in the last 24 hours.
Yes, I had heard that. And as a result of that, my source texted me and said, yeah, that Assad has fled to Russia.
Well, I think we need to Google this.
Maybe. He was saying that there's some they've moved past Aleppo, and that they have been two militias, one being Turkish backed, the other one I'm not sure what the backing is on it, the Free Syrian Army or something like that. They've been making rapid advances, and even Russian personnel are abandoning smaller bases.
So what I'd heard originally was that the militias or the insurgents taking Aleppo are Islamist.
Oh,
But
they all are.
there were Turkish-based factions that were exploiting the situation
Right.
in other parts of the country.
Right. Like, who's not Islamist over there? Like, really? Who's not?
I don't know.
They all are.
Assad.
He's just a different kind of Islamist.
Well,
a
here's
highly personalized, self-interested Islamism.
well again, and this is where the cascade comes in. So now we're talking Iran. Iran is Shia,
Yep.
and it's fairly fervent in its
Yep.
Islamism itself, but it's supporting Assad, not these Islamist rebels.
Right. Well, that's because Assad is Shia.
Yeah, I guess.
The Assad family is Shiite.
I was not aware of that.
Yep. Shias are a minority in Syria, but
The majority in Iraq. That's interesting.
Yeah, they are the majority in Iraq. We found that out.
Shias? No. Sunnis.
No.
You better check that, boys.
Shia are the majority in
Yeah,
Iraq, and that was the problem.
That was one of the problems that Hussein had is that
Pull that up. I want to see that. My understanding now in the south, what is the name of that region on the south that actually borders on the coast?
Like Basra?
Yes, that in Basra, the Shiites are the majority.
The problem
But
with
elsewhere is that they are north.
No, it was
Or elsewhere, sorry, in the north that they are
Hussein
in the majority.
and his governing
Yep.
his governing
Yep.
There was
Clique?
There's the
Clique,
area
yeah, they were Sunni,
Sunni, yeah. So
but
like
the majority of the population is Shia.
Hussein was from Tikrit. That was like a Sunni enclave. Then like Baghdad, Ramadi, and Fallujah is the Sunni triangle,
Yeah,
essentially,
yeah.
right? But then they're basically all surrounded by Shias, and then Kurds in the north.
Well, let's take a look. I'll look at Wikipedia because, of course, Wikipedia is always accurate.
Absolutely.
How can nobody can possibly question that? Well, it just says that's not going to help me. Oh my god. Oh, boys, I walk it back. Yep, overwhelming majority is Shia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Told you.
Well, you sure did. Holy cats.
Like, don't listen to the guy who spent like 2 years there or anything, you know?
Ah, you were in a truck. You never talked to anybody. So, yeah, okay. So, yeah, there you are. So, yeah, it does have kind of ripple effects. It does kind of affect, and this is another aspect of the war or not the war, the coming change of election or coming change of administration in the United States in, like, what are we looking at, 45 days? Maybe 40?
January 20th. So,
yeah.
50 days.
I can see, again, I anticipate that they're going to try and deal with America's domestic situation first, but when they do start looking internationally, I can see the Trump administration dealing with the Middle East as its primary concern.
It might.
So-
There's probably going to be changes. Again, this is John was talking about this last night. Is that the Saudis have already been talking to Trump about because Trump is going to back in the drill baby drill train.
Yep, I've heard that as well.
Increase and so the Saudis have been talking because the Saudis want to defenestrate Iran. So they're in cooperation with the U.S. They're probably planning major increases in oil production.
Right, drop the price.
Drop the price,
And
which
then,
will hurt.
yeah.
Which will hurt both Russia and Iran.
And Iran, yeah. And Alberta.
And Alberta. It will.
But can't make an omelet without breaking the eggs, I guess.
Well, it depends how badly he wants to hurt
Yeah.
Alberta. And
Well, who
also,
cares? What?
and now they're talking. They're also. I mean, the Trump administration, the incoming or the transition team has already been talking about Keystone XL again.
Hopefully we can do that.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
that'd be a good thing to get going.
Because for the first time, we'll have all three players that, like, you need an American president, you need an Alberta premier, and you need a Canadian prime minister. All three are going to sign off on that.
Yeah.
And in 2025, we have a very strong possibility of having all three of those elements in place for the first time ever.
Yeah, but you need a fourth element, which is the actual company that's going to build the pipeline. And
Oh, I think that's pretty easy to find. I mean, the problem was never the economic feasibility of the project. It was always political interference.
right, and so that's the issue right now. So one thing I like about doing this on the day that we do at the time
Yeah.
that we do, and I'm generally showing up 15 minutes to 30 minutes late,
Yeah.
is I am listening to the thrice accursed CBC on the way over here. And that's one of the subjects they
Yeah.
were talking about this morning.
Oh, this morning? Okay.
Yeah. And how the offshoot company that was created specifically
Yeah.
to handle pipelines for,
Yeah.
I think it's TransCanada still.
Yeah.
This is another
Yeah, it was
TransCanada deal, right?
TCPL, I think it was.
Yeah.
Right. But they created a company specifically
Yeah.
for the pipeline,
For this project.
all pipeline projects.
Yeah.
But they're keeping their cards close to their chest right now.
Right.
Because they want to be sure that another change in administration
Yeah, no. It's,
at any of the three levels that you just
Yeah.
mentioned
Yeah.
isn't going to end up with the project being kiboshed again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they lose another
billion.
boatload of money.
So they're more than anything else,
Yeah.
the big risk is what happens after Trump turn 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Is it going to be another Democratic
Yeah. Yeah.
another
Democratic
that comes in and shuts it down
shuts it
midway through
down.
the project?
Yeah, exactly. Or saying, how many years does Smith have? 3 or 2?
I can't even remember.
Probably 2 at this point.
Yeah. So that would probably be the next change.
Yeah.
Because if we have a new, and I'm not saying this is a slam dunk, but if we have a conservative government in Ottawa in 2025, say that takes office, let's say election March, April, as soon as the weather starts to turn,
From your lips to God's ears.
if not February. So then we wouldn't have a new administration actually able with legislative authority after handover, say August, September. So then they maybe can. You're not really going to break ground until spring of 2026.
Yeah.
And then Smith is, and of course, everybody who is against that pipeline, and there are formidable forces arrayed against it, will pour every effort they have into getting Smith out of office so that you get a new Democrat government in Edmonton who then kiboshes the project.
Yeah. Yeah, well, mind you, with the new NDP leadership, that could be a bigger thing. I don't know. It depends, because the new NDP leadership, right? Like, he's got deep roots in Calgary, where the oil industry is headquartered.
Sure.
Who would think maybe have...
Oh, Nenshi may not be big on axing it right now,
Yeah.
but
I don't see an NDP.
if you made him an offer he couldn't refuse.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Say, like, look, Naheed, we will put so much horsepower and money behind you that we will get you elected. Our price, you kill Keystone.
Yeah.
A megalomaniac like Nenshi, he'll make that deal in a heartbeat.
I don't think it's accurate to just assume that an ND government in Alberta is going to shut down a pipeline like that.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you figure?
I've always, argued that I know not many people in this province have a lot of good to say about. Can't even remember
About her Notley's record?
About Notley's record, right?
Yeah.
But I felt like for an ND government, all things considered, she fought against British Columbia and she fought against the feds.
Yeah.
From an Albertan perspective.
Yeah.
Including the oil patch. Right. In fact, the fact that she introduced the legislation that she did, that we could fuck over BC by basically saying, okay, you don't want our second Alberta pipeline, then we're going to shut down the one you got. Right, and I couldn't believe the furor that came out of BC regarding that.
Well,
right?
I think the Alberta NDP had a real change of heart midway through their term, and that when they came in 2015, they were very anti-oil and gas, and they initiated a royalty review very quickly on. They right from the get-go, Keystone XL was one of the first things they threw cold water on. They introduced a slew of regulatory measures to slow down oil and gas development. But by 2017, 2018, they began to see the financial repercussions of a slowdown in the oil and gas industry. Yeah. And then they began to realize that, they may not like it, but you cannot do the things you want to do, say from a progressive point of view, without something to fund that government, and that's what oil and gas is. Yeah. And they abandoned that royalty review, stayed with status quo ante. They started advocating for pipelines. Yeah. Like, they couldn't walk back their position on Keystone XL. Like, that is asking a lot politically. I don't blame them for that.
Well, and there was no reason to try anyway, because
the Biden had shut.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
between the Biden administration and all that, there was no.
But they did advocate for Trans Mountain.
Yep.
They
did.
Absolutely. So, you're right. I will give you this, that it is not a given that an Alberta NDP government would kill that pipeline. It is not a given. But what I am saying is, if you were an outside, say you were an American interest, and you had deep pockets, or you were an Eastern Canadian interest with deep pockets, and you do not want to see that pipeline go forward, if you were able to basically say, I will put so much support behind your campaign that it'll push you over the top and you will get 4 years of power, but this is my price, I think a guy like Nenshi would take that deal.
Yeah, maybe, but I guess
he'd certainly consider it.
It's not a given that Nenshi's going to get that Smith will lose.
That's step one.
And that's the point. Yeah, it's not a given. So if an outside party was willing to throw considerable support and assistance, because again, they made the full court press. When was the last election? 2021?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago.
They gave everything they had. I mean, that was all-out campaign. They left nothing off the table. I have never seen a media campaign like that as what was leveled against Smith in that.
Yeah.
And they still were not able to get over the top. So something new is needed. Like if what you did in 2021 doesn't work, well, what are you going to do next? Well, if some outside agency came in and said, I've got a ton of kind of indirect financial support for you, media support, maybe new media support, and I could put you over the edge, there would be serious discussions in caucus to say, okay, look, they really need to give, like, there would be people say, we really need to consider this.
I think it's tough. I mean, after, it's now 45 years I've lived in this province and watched the politics. We've had one new Democrat mandate in that whole time.
Yep.
Right?
And you could make an argument that it was largely a protest vote, too.
Yeah. And the only thing that made it possible was the splitting of the right
between
into the Wild Rose
conservatives,
and conservatives. And they've shored that up.
Yep.
So I don't know.
They came close, so
they came close.
NDP came really close.
But I mean, and now I'm going to speak to your ongoing, I won't say paranoid, but disdain for the mainstream press.
Yeah.
I don't see that there's a lot more resources you can pump into that.
I would agree. I think they did everything they could do.
And pull anything off that's any stronger. I don't see the changing command at the head of the NDs making the difference. I don't see any amount of money making a difference.
I do see maybe if you had, again, if some third party could come in and say maybe assist maybe in the new media sphere. Because I think that's what saved the Conservatives, is that they were able to resist the influence of the legacy media through their very, very, for example, everyone's in the United States is talking about, oh God, how Trump used the podcast. Trump and Vance used the podcast, how would you say, lane or
Sphere or whatever.
Sphere, to bypass the gatekeepers of the legacy media.
Yeah.
And then dismantle the framing that had been placed around them by legacy media to reach the electorate with their message unfiltered. Smith was doing that 2 years before Trump and Vance
I guess what I push back against in both these cases, when we're talking about what happened south of the border, and I won't describe it in any other terms. And
so you're saying it went south.
and Smith, good one.
Yeah.
Is like, just because the mainstream media is putting out certain messaging doesn't mean that messaging is inaccurate. All right. So, and that's, to me, this is the biggest legacy of
it matter
of the Trump years,
or does it matter if it's effective? Like let's look at this not in say moralistic terms, but let's look at this purely empirical terms. Like let's say we are paid as election consultants.
Yeah.
And so no one's asking us what we think or feel about this.
Right.
They're saying, what if you had to win an election, how would you do it? Right. So it doesn't matter. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that all the criticisms that the legacy media leveled against Smith were true, 100% true.
Yeah.
The question is, are they effective? Did they accomplish the mission, which was to...
Obviously not.
Exactly.
Right, but the reason I'm bringing it up is this is the problem I have, right? And I'll take it back a step further to the Kenny years, right? There were some, from my point of view, some serious charges leveled against how the Conservative Party proceeded under Kenny in getting him into the leadership, and the RCMP was investigating all these things, right?
Now, what was so far as I know, the RCMP came back and said, "Yeah, we don't have a case," or am I wrong in that? I'm not. I could be wrong.
I can't even remember anymore.
Because so far as I remember, they came back and said they didn't have anything worth tracking. Now, I don't know if that's true or not.
I can't remember either. It's just, I'm just speaking in broad terms. Like I have a real problem with, and this is the biggest legacy of the Trump, the the first Trump administration and the campaign that went with that is the whole fake news bullshit, right? Just declaring something fake news and just blowing it off, right? Now everyone can do that, right?
Well, yeah.
And so there is...
And for that, you can thank Hillary Clinton because she's the one who came up with the term.
Yes, that's true.
She didn't.
Yeah. Fake news was a Clinton campaign thing.
Yep.
And Trump made it his own.
Hijack. Yeah, Trump
He
made it his
hijacked
own.
it, but it came from the
Well,
Clintons.
he successfully, because I remember it being him.
No, it was,
Right, and
it came
to me,
from the,
it
He
suits,
popularized it.
it suits his style.
it came from the Clinton campaign, and he made it his own.
Wow.
But yeah, no, fake news was a Hillaryism.
Yeah.
But
And it was complete rubbish, too, because CNN and MSNBC were absolutely 100% unbiased in their coverage of Trump. Like, they never, ever said
course.
anything
Absolutely.
that
Well,
was
as
fake.
opposed to
Because there was
Fox.
fine people on both sides, and that was 100% accurate. And, like, the Russia file was, like, pure, unadulterated, award-winning journalism.
yeah,
Like, absolute truth-finding, truth-telling there, 100%. I'm sorry, Trent. I interrupted.
Well, I mean, that's where
No such thing as fake news.
the perceptions of both of us are so
They are.
diametrically
Oh, yeah,
opposite.
totally. Well,
Like-
I think we both see the same things, but we notice highlights on either end, right? Like, I see something, but I don't really. Yeah, okay, I saw it, but I focus on this. Whereas we're the opposite, right? Like, you saw what I focused on. You saw, but you focused on something that I saw, but I didn't put much notice into.
Yeah, I mean, like to hear 4 years later, you're talking about how the election was stolen
Yes.
in 2020.
Yes.
I'm like the only only documented instances of electoral
Fraud.
fraud
Mm-hmm.
were exposed by Republicans
Mm-hmm.
of Republican
Misbehavior,
misbehavior, right?
And you know what? Let me clarify 100%. I am not saying that the election was stolen, because I don't have any evidence of that. But what I will say, and I defy anyone to prove me wrong on this, it looked awful. Like, there was so much circumstantial evidence that really looked awful, and that really indicated that there was shenanigans in the 4 big swing states. And so, and again, it's circumstantial, but there was a large preponderance of that circumstantial evidence. And what should have been done is, I don't know what the American equivalent would be, but like a royal commission. Say, let's, again, put sunlight on it. Let's absolutely pull this right out into the open and examine everything.
That's not gonna happen in the United
blow it out. And they didn't. And so when you allow suspicion to linger like that, it really poisons the water. It really poisons the discourse. And you kind of leave that lingering in the background, and it just erodes trust and builds suspicion in all institutions. And that was the real error.
Well, let me throw the two examples I would go to. Like, one is the mother and daughter who were the election workers in Georgia that were, whose names were mentioned. They were and they were pointed to as stuffing ballot boxes or doing something, right? And all the evidence that was brought up in support of that claim and in defense of that claim showed that there was no such thing going on, and these people were named, and they were, and they were persecuted after that.
Yeah, they were
publicly,
doxxed.
That was distasteful.
Sure, yeah, it shouldn't
Right?
happen. You shouldn't. Yeah, again, this whole new age tactic of doxing people, is absolutely toxic and it's reprehensible.
I'd say that the bigger example of nothing to see here, folks, was the fact that was it Fox News that was taken? I think it was actually Fox News. The claims about the election machines, like the voting machines that were used. And I can't remember the name of the company that came back and said, "This is bullshit. You are defaming us."
Dominion.
Okay. Yep. Dominion voting machines,
right?
yeah.
And that went all the way to, I think it went to the Supreme Court, didn't
Yep.
it?
I think so.
And
Yep.
they were awarded like
Yeah.
billions of dollars.
Sure.
Right?
But again, there were a lot of circumstantial things came up. Like those machines, they were told on and on, like over and over and over and over again. They were standalone machines and were not online. But we know that they were online. They were connected to the internet. That one of the counties in
Nevada?
Pennsylvania
Okay.
had 14,000 uninterrupted Biden votes on the mail-in ballots that were counted overnight. What are the odds of that? Like, doesn't that strike you as like, The irregularities that were brought up in all four of those swing states within their own regulations for mail-in ballots. First of all, the concept of mail-in ballots, as was prosecuted in the 2020 election. I'm sorry, nobody can look at that and say, yeah, that's a good way to run an election. There's no chance of fraud there. The bellwether counties. Again, is this hard evidence? No, of course not. But when viewed in the context of so many other things that keep popping up, you have to look at that like, yeah, that ain't right. The fact that Joe Biden got more votes than any other presidential candidate in American history, including Barack Obama. I mean, the 2008 election was just as high stakes as the 2020 election in what was felt to be on the line, and with the impetus of America's first black presidential candidate, the urgency to get out the vote. And you're telling me that Joe Biden did 14 million more votes than that?
I'd say. Okay,
and last point was how on all of these, like the bluest county in the United States is a tie between Greenwich Village in New York and a district in San Francisco. And all four of the swing state counties where the midnight count of ballots tripped it in favor of the Democrats, all four of them had higher percentages of Democrat votes than the two bluest counties in the United States. That doesn't strike you as like, that needs a closer look?
Well, I'm going to go back to your second point, which was when you're comparing Obama in 08 versus Biden in 2020.
Yeah.
Obama came in on a message of hope.
He did.
Right? And he leveraged social media very well in a positive fashion. And there was a lot of get out the vote. There was a lot of momentum behind him.
Huge.
So I'm going to set that aside. That's how he won that.
Oh, but
right?
Now I'm not saying that his victory wasn't legitimate.
I get it. But you're asking,
how does Biden top that?
How does Biden top that?
By 14 million.
My argument would be that after 4 years of Trump, and we saw the midterm elections in 2018, was dismal for the Republicans, both in the House and the Senate. That everyone had enough of Trump. So I think the only reason for supporting Biden in 2020 was voter fatigue. Right? They just did not want 4 more years of Trump.
So it was worth the urgency was that much more than the concern of the economic collapse in 2008, the never-ending war in Iraq, and the specter of 4 more years of the devil himself. The hatred and the vitriol against Trump was only maybe 10%, 15% less than the hatred and the vitriol against George W. Bush. Like the rhetoric was, like nothing matches the rhetoric against Trump. Nothing.
What?
The rhetoric and the urgency to get George W. out of the White House. Like I remember that. Like that was a fever pitch. And just to say that, it was higher in Trump. Sure. Yes, it was. 14 million votes.
Well,
the most successful presidential campaign in American history.
It is important. It is important to include in that that while Biden got the most votes of any presidential candidate in history, the number 2 position in that poll is Donald Trump in the same election.
Sure.
Right? It was one of the highest.
But doesn't this say, hey, it's worth looking at?
It's one of the highest voter turnouts.
Like if you have a choice, if you got a choice of the 2020 election to say, this is worth looking at, and let's throw open the doors and let no doubt remain, or no, cover it up, you're not allowed to look at it, you're not even allowed to talk about it. You're not even allowed to ask the question. Does that not strike you as suspicious?
No.
Well,
Of course not. You're a man of the left. You're used to conformity.
No.
But I'm asking you, Mr. Libertarian, say no. You may not even question. If you even bring that up, I'm going to ban you off social media. I'm going to kick you off of Twitter. I'm going to kick you off of YouTube. You may not even speak of it.
No.
That doesn't strike you like somebody who's got something to hide?
No, let's be clear about why he was kicked off Twitter.
No, not Trump. I mean anybody. Anybody who dared suggest, I think that election was dirty. And they started getting banned from the public sphere. Again, this is absolutely 100% the wrong attitude to take. What if you're right, if you speak the truth to me, Trent, what do you have to lose by a full investigation? No one's going to jail, but we are going to say, let's bring people in, let's testify before Congress under oath.
What's the problem? What's coming with? So I think what will have clouded this is the events of January
6th.
January 6th.
Okay.
Right? Is that everything that became the lightning rod around which this whole concept began to revolve. Right? So now if we're questioning it, it becomes as polarized as climate change has become. Right?
Okay.
As COVID became. There is no middle ground.
Okay,
right?
so why would you not want to clear that air?
Because no one was willing to have a rational discourse about it anymore.
Well, then let's have one. Instead of the Democrats who said, no, we will forbid any discussion whatsoever.
I think that's again.
Even if you don't find it suspicious, would you at least not say that it was ill-advised? Or do you support that idea? Say, no, we should absolutely ban certain things. It should not. There are certain things you may not, questions you may not ask, things you may not ponder, conversations you may not have.
If we're talking about the subject of the election being stolen, right? If a rational discourse is possible, right? Let's have it.
Okay,
right?
That's all I wanted to hear.
As it turned out, again, to me, it's like this whole, everyone wants their rights, but without the responsibility to go with it, right? So freedom of speech, that's great. What are the consequences of your freedom of speech? If it's some variation on, like we know that you can't yell fire in a crowded theater.
Yep.
Right?
Yes, you can.
Well, if there's no fire.
You can still yell it.
People
don't understand.
What
people don't understand that metaphor gets used all the time, and it's completely wrong. And the common use of the metaphor is completely opposite of what the decision was.
Okay,
but you can yell the fire all you want. It's not illegal. You may face, if there is no fire.
Now, is this in Canada or is this in America?
In the United States.
Okay.
If there is no fire, you may face
civil repercussions.
Right.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of in keeping with the metaphor.
Yeah. But
it's not banned, but you could face repercussions. You could be held accountable for your actions.
Right. And
whereas if you stood up in a crowded theater and said George Bush is a bum, like that's there's no repercussions for that. That's fair comment.
But also fire in a crowded theater is like you could, but it's not like incitement to violence or things like that.
Yes.
Right? Like when people use the metaphor, they're usually saying like it's illegal to yell fire in a crowded theater.
Oh, okay, yeah.
When it's not.
No, and I don't think that
because there's very little like fire in a crowded theater is like you cannot.
It's irresponsible.
It's irresponsible.
Whether that's civil or criminal.
You could face repercussions for your irresponsibility, but not for your language.
Right. Fair enough.
So.
But you're kind of speaking on those terms, saying that there's not enough accountability for irresponsible speech.
Yeah, and I think that's what, again, once January 6th happened, now all of a sudden, like I said, that's the lightning rod. So all discussion, it's like what we've talked about for climate change. If we want to discuss, hey, wait a minute, are we sure about all these facts?
Right.
Now you're a climate denier. Right. You're either with us or you're against us.
Yep.
Right. So there's no gray area. So I think the same thing happened there. Was there an actual shutting down as a matter of policy, just because it benefited the Democrats by the Democrats, I don't necessarily buy into that, right?
I don't know. We'll never know. We're not allowed to talk about it.
Well, there's other more traditional interests in the United States that have no desire to see a lot of sunlight thrown on any elections. One of those is the Federal Electoral Commission.
Sure.
The other two are the Democrats and Republican parties, right?
Yeah.
Like it is a non-starter because
because
they don't want
election tampering happens on both sides. 100%.
Oh, you get gerrymandering, you get all sorts of shit going on,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
actually,
it looked like it happened on a large enough scale to have a very macro effect in 2020.
Actually, so that being said, if you want to talk about the 2020 elections, right, that happened because if I'm not mistaken, if I understand this correctly, it's every 10 years, and 2020 was one of them. That was when the gerrymandering occurred, when all counties
were realigned,
or electoral districts were realigned, and a majority of those were Republican controlled.
Sure.
So, notwithstanding all that,
so let's look at that.
The Republicans still lost.
Sure. Let's look at that. What's wrong with that? Like, I don't have a problem with dragging that into the sun. If wrongdoing is done, I'm not concerned with who did it.
But you
correct the wrongdoing.
You got to understand the federal election redistricting has effects on how the Congress looks, but only only the House of Representatives. Oh, okay. It has no effect on the presidential election.
On say the Electoral College.
Yeah, it doesn't have any effect on the Electoral College because
that's all by state.
Yeah, it's done by popular vote in the state, right? So the what they called it, they didn't call it gerrymandering, they called it the redistricting. What the redistricting did was make it easier for
nobody calls it gerrymandering.
Yeah. Well, some people do.
It's a pejorative term.
But they didn't call it the Gerrymandering Act or the Gerrymandering Enabling Act.
It's funny. It's also that it's 100% legal as well, right? Like gerrymandering is legal manipulation for better or worse, right? It is. But the redistricting it only just made it like easier for Republicans to win the House of Representatives.
Not just that,
but it didn't.
Everything I've read in the last 20 years when the subject comes up, and I will not claim to be an expert on this. I won't claim to have read a lot about it. And we all know what direction I'm coming from here. But the only way that Republicans can maintain power is by gerrymandering, because they have to fix the districts. Because just the way demographics are going these days, if they don't do that, they are going to lose.
No.
I did see an interesting kind of a op-ed. I haven't made up my mind as what I think about it, but it did get me thinking, where somebody said there are no more red states and blue states. There are blue cities and red everything else. I thought that's an interesting observation. Don't know what I think about that yet.
If you start to look at counties, if you break down the U.S. federal election map county by county, is very huge swaths of red with very small,
but densely populated
cells of blue. Right?
Yeah, because they were looking at like what we traditionally think of as blue states.
Yeah,
and say no, it's blue cities.
Yeah,
and the rest of the state is red.
Yeah, most of the counties. Yeah. Now the West Coast, especially the coastal areas, even if they're rural, it will generally go blue, except for maybe Northern California.
Yeah,
but
again, like the exception.
But for the most part, it's blue cities, red.
But I mean, we've seen that demographic just.
Well, we've seen that here
stereotyping
in Alberta.
Right?
In the last Alberta election, you had these little orange pockets in the cities. Everywhere else is blue.
Yeah.
And what it came down to is, and it really
blue in this case being
conservative,
right wing, to the
orange
right,
being left. What the provincial election essentially boils down to is how many urban voters can the NDP win over?
Yeah.
If they get enough urban voters, then that will get them over the top. And that's like, and so you get battleground cities, notably Lethbridge and Calgary.
Yeah.
Because everything outside of those cities wasn't Grand Prairie in play? Didn't Grand Prairie get a couple conservative?
Was in play.
Yeah. So it was those three communities, which were kind of like the swing states of the Alberta election, right?
Yeah.
Because Edmonton or Red Deer, 100% orange, and
Red Deer went orange?
I think so. Yes.
I think Edmonton went.
Edmonton went pretty orange. Yeah.
Edmonton is all orange all the time.
I don't know, but Red
No,
Deer.
it hasn't always been.
Well, one guy, maybe one riding sometimes goes, and that's usually on the outskirts, might go conservative.
Yeah.
But by and large, I mean, Edmonton is the convergence of three levels of the public sector. It's always going to go left.
Yeah, but let's also talk about
The demographics
the power of
Edmonton are
one's
gonna take
vote,
it left.
right? I happen to live in Edmonton,
Yeah.
and the power of my vote compared to someone who lives in Bassano
Sure.
is negligible,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, there's some argument to be made there.
Yeah, but
right?
also
So
there's
why-
the
why
argument
does-
of majority rule with respect for minority rights. You have to balance. You cannot allow urban centers to simply run roughshod over the rest of the population. There
Yeah,
has
but-
to be some kind of balance. And
it's-
I'm not
but-
saying ours is perfect,
No, the balance is the other way
but
around. What you're talking
you
about,
have to have
it's-
something there.
It's out of balance the other way around, right? What's the population of this province? 3
No,
million?
no, I hear what you're saying.
It's over 4.
But
Is it
are
over
you
4?
advocating a majority tyranny, or are you advocating some kind of representative democracy? Like, I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying if
It's-
you don't
it's
like
far
this,
from perfect.
what do we do to stop urban centers? Say, what do the people in Edmonton and Calgary know about the issues in Bassano? Or about the issues, say, in Zama City?
yeah, but the
Or
question
the
is-
issues in Fort Macleod. If we just did 100% popular vote, then Edmonton and Calgary would have, if you're not a resident of those cities, you don't count. Yet, what do the people in Edmonton and Calgary know about the situation in, say, the more rural
Yeah, but
areas
I'm-
of the province
I'm
that
asking-
gives them the right to decide that?
Well, I'm asking the question the other way around because
Exactly.
that's
So where do
because
we-
that's been the I'm saying
So what do we do to balance that out? If the system we have now, where we have individual ridings, where they're very small in the cities and they're huge in the country, there is still a disparity, and so it's not perfect. But what do we do to replace
no,
that?
it's far from perfect.
So what do we fix
It's
it with?
totally imperfect.
So what do we fix it with?
Something more balanced,
Like?
slightly less power for the rural votes.
So
Because this isn't even close.
so say
Since 1974.
okay. Yeah. No, I
So
hear what you're saying.
for 50 years
Yeah.
now, we had, 10% of that time
Yeah.
was not progressive conservative,
Fair enough.
right? And so I'm saying there's a huge imbalance there.
So let's say we combine, we do 4-1. We take four rural, all four, or for every 4 rural ridings, we combine them into one. So that way it's a bit more like vote per representative is in line between the rural areas and the urban areas. So then how do we ensure adequate representation for a rural voter because their MLA now has 2.5 million square kilometers to cover? How do you get access to your MLA?
I would
then?
go the other way around.
Whereas
I would have- hang on,
consider
hang
door
on.
knocking in the city versus door knocking now in this mega riding that's
Right.
all of northern Alberta.
So I would go the other way
Yeah.
around. Instead of combining 4 rural,
Split up cities even
divide the urban, right? Give them more representatives,
Okay.
right? That way you don't have
Okay.
to.
So now you give an advantage to the urban representative because running a campaign in the city is now super cheap. I'm just saying, any way you slice it, there's gonna be
Right now-
I don't think you're gonna get an improvement.
But if you shrink the ridings of urban candidates,
Yep.
I think it's less likely that you get an all orange Edmonton.
If you shrunk the ridings,
If you shrunk the if you
That's a
increase
possibility.
the number of MLAs from the urbans,
because you might be able to carve a non-orange or like say
Oh, okay.
how
So
would you say no let me
Glenora,
yeah something like that.
Riverbend.
You could, although no, the upper income ridings, if you do a heat map of property values and voting, it matches perfectly for the NDP. Upper income voters exclusively go NDP.
No.
You don't believe me? Check it out. Look at it.
I
Look at
have
it.
I have canvassed for New Democrat candidates.
Sure, you have
in these areas.
Why am I not surprised?
And
Dude.
And
Look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look it
the
up.
most disheartening thing about going through those
Yeah.
areas is won't even talk to you. I won't even talk to you. You're talking orange here? No.
Okay.
Fuck you. Right?
Okay.
Get off my lawn.
When was this? Because
As 2007.
Okay.
there's been a lot of political realignment.
Yeah.
Since then.
This is the reality of the realignment that is happening across the English-speaking world. In fact, across the Western world, conservative parties are becoming the voice of the working class, and progressive parties are more and more the voice of the wealthy class.
Yeah.
I know this is really contentious, and the left hates hearing that, especially old school left like yourself. This is anathema to you.
If you're talking about the bourgeoisie, fine. Right? Because bourgeoisie is
wealthy. The top two income quintiles are overwhelmingly the bedrock support of the left.
bullshit.
It is, dude. Don't take my word for it. Look it up.
Bullshit. There's no way the top 1% of the population in the U.S.
I didn't say the top 1%. I said the top two
I know, I
income
get that,
quintiles,
but
which is a
that
much bigger group.
That includes the top 1%, right? Your richest people in the U.S. are not supporting Harris over Trump. They are supporting Trump.
Well, why is that significant? Or why
Well,
does that negate my assertion?
They do not see their interests.
Okay, but
in
why
the
does that? So
progressive.
if the one guy who's making, say, Jeff Bezos money, although Jeff Bezos is blue and Mark Zuckerberg is blue, and if one guy named Elon Musk is, say, voting conservative, and 250,000 people who are all making who are making, say, between $700,000 a year and $120,000 a year are all voting orange. How does that negate what I'm saying?
The Koch brothers are not voting orange.
Say they're not. But again, what if 750,000 people who are in that, say, $700,000 a year to $120,000 a year, if those guys are overwhelmingly voting left, how is that negated by the fact that Elon Musk and the Koch brothers are not?
Well, I guess we'd have to look at those statistics.
We should.
I don't believe
should.
for a moment that they are true. So, of course, Steve is going to look some up here.
Yeah.
So from Statista.com, just looking at exit polls from the U.S. election from the federal one, or as Trent put it, what happened down south.
What happened down south? The apocalypse.
Yeah. The Nikba.
Yeah.
That was. But so for voters, $200,000 or more, 51% have supported Kamala Harris, 45% supported Donald Trump. Voters in the $100,000 to $200,000 income brackets, 51 for Kamala, 47 for Trump. 50,000 to 100,000.
No, this is bullshit. I don't believe any of it. Fuck out.
That looks almost like 51-49 almost across the board, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Do you got stats for Brexit?
No, interestingly, though, under 30,000 was more for blue.
Well, I would expect that.
Under 30,000?
Yeah,
50,
I would expect
50,
that.
Yeah.
But again, it's like 50-46. It's way closer than I would have thought. I would expect the very bottom income quintile and the very bottom would be 60-40 for the left. I would expect. The very bottom income quintile.
Yeah, because they rely on welfare programs.
Yes. And of course, they know that if you have a conservative government which advocates small government, it's going to directly affect them. So I would expect them to be more aware of that dichotomy.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure Brexit is going to be all that.
Yeah, there's been a lot of, I think, even...
There's a lot of people, as far as I understand, went and voted yes to Brexit, who the next day woke up and said, "What did I just do?"
Okay, how about the latest?
Well, because a lot of them
British
just did it as a joke.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. So instead of having one data point, let's look at Brexit. Let's look at the latest UK general election, the more recent federal elections in Germany, We could look at the French election. How did it break? How did income affect vote? I mean, we could do this later rather than just have a bunch of dead air. But I will say, I'm still going to assert that, look, coffee's on me if I'm wrong, and that the working class is not shifting over to the right.
Wait a minute. Are we talking Starbucks or are we talking Tim Hortons?
You know what? I would even buy you that awful Starbucks stuff.
Okay. As opposed to that even more awful fucking Tim Hortons shit.
Yes, we'd go to McDonald's for coffee.
There you go.
Yeah.
Actually, here's something I heard recently.
Yeah.
That what happened? You know when McDonald's opened their McCafe?
Yep.
They did that by buying out Tim Hortons' supply
Original
chain.
recipe. Yeah, I heard that too.
They bought out their whole supply chain. So now Tim Hortons had to scramble for something new.
Yeah. Or that when Tim Hortons was purchased by, they went to, what I had heard of that was that, of course, when they were bought out, there's some, like a Brazilian company or something owns Tim Hortons or some crap like that.
No, I can't remember.
But anyway, they had a takeover. They became part of a different corporate family, which had their own kind of supply chain. And so they switched over, and McDonald's said, we'll take that. And so that they bought the recipe or the bean mix or whatever it is. I don't know how true that is, but whatever. I will say, though, that, when they did bring out their McCafe stuff, I'd never really tried McDonald's coffee before, so I have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah.
But I don't mind McDonald's coffee, and I kind of prefer it to Tim Hortons.
Interesting. Because
I know a lot of coffee drinkers who are the same.
Yeah.
They actually.
So I can't say that, after the change, I suddenly preferred it. No, because I never really noticed before that. And I only ever I drank Tim Hortons because that's really all there was.
I noticed that. So I used to drink Tim Hortons till I went to Spain and discovered what coffee actually tastes like.
Yeah. And then I started, when I started actually drinking both on a regular enough basis that I could remember from time to time what the taste was, I found that I did prefer the McDonald's coffee to Tim Hortons.
Which is funny because that was the original Tim Hortons recipe.
If that's true, yeah. I've heard that. I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen anything official about that, but...
You know what? Another interesting thing that I came across, and it's because John used to serve there, Fort Huachuca, actually registers with me, right? You know, the first drive-through McDonald's opened in Fort Huachuca.
Really? What state is that in?
I think it's either Arizona or Kansas. I can't even remember.
Really interesting. Not like
the reason was
center.
it was in 1974.
That late?
Because 1973, the new base commander decreed that none of the troops could get out of their vehicles in the civilian area in uniform.
That's why.
And the McDonald's owner was losing. He lost like 90% of his business.
Right. So he said,
and so
I gotta
his
do
wife
something
said,
about this.
knock a hole in the wall and just let them order from their cars.
Necessity being the mother of invention.
Yeah.
How very interesting. Well, before that, it was drive-in restaurants, wasn't it?
Yes, it was drive-in. So you could be served, but that wasn't a McDonald's thing. That was like...
No, that was everybody, though.
Yeah, it was everybody.
Where you had...
The-
now, I still remember those.
Yeah, you had Wilma Flintstone on roller skates.
Yes.
Yeah.
I never, ever
Wasn't
saw...
Wilma? Wilma was in the car with the family.
No, Wilma had a job.
Yeah, Wilma and Betty did it in one episode.
Yeah. But like I never ever saw a waitress, like when I was a kid, I remember drive-in restaurants.
Yeah, because A&W
used to be, yeah.
drive-in.
Yeah. And they would have this big covered kind of parking lot.
Yep.
That had a big concrete cover on it. And you'd pull up in there. And I don't even remember how you made your order.
Yeah,
I guess usually there was like an electronic box.
There was like a speaker box there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And somebody would come out with the little tray.
Yep.
You
And
know,
hang it
little
on your
clips
window.
hanging on the window. Yeah.
You have your window partially open.
Yeah, that's right. So that there was enough. So the tray had little clips that would sit on the window. Yep. And at a car show a couple of years ago, I think it was Rock in August in St. Albert, somebody had a classic car from the 60s or something like that, fully restored. And part of their display was they had an A&W. I think it was A&W because it was orange. A little drive-in restaurant tray attached to their window with plastic reproduction of burger and fries.
Oh, right on.
And, this sort of thing, yeah.
I think Pete's Drive-In still does that.
No.
No?
Peters?
I don't know,
Peters?
man.
Yeah.
No, they're drive-through.
Drive-through, yeah.
Drive-through. I thought they did that for a while.
You know what? It would be something you could maybe do one day out of the year as a gimmick.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, because it's not something you could sustain day in and day out. Because your labor costs are just going to put you through the roof now.
Well, they still have. I mean, in the States, they still have Sonic, which is a drive-in, not a drive-through.
Drive-in, okay.
I think they also have a drive-through, but they're
but I think that would be very dependent upon certain states. So, like, you couldn't do that in California.
This episode brought to you by Sonic's, A&W,
Yeah. But, like,
and Pete's Drive-In.
If you had, like, let's say you got an independent thing, like you got a Burger Baron somewhere, or like an independent restaurant where you can kind of you can do your own thing. You could maybe say advertise that, or like say a Pete's Drive-In, right? You can say, hey, for one day on this Friday, we're doing this. We're gonna roll back the clock, and we're gonna have, your kind of, our drive-in style restaurant, 70s style, where we're doing this crap. You'd probably make some money because people would come out just that one time for the nostalgia of it. And by only doing it that one night, you build an urgency to it. Let's say, look, we got one opportunity to experience this. Put the kids in the car. Let's go.
Yeah.
And
you could do it like a once-a-year thing.
Yeah. Do a once-a-year thing.
Yeah.
You'd make some money.
Yeah.
You'd make some money.
You could also combine that with having a movie.
You maybe could. I know that they do that on base from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
Where during COVID, they they arranged a drive-through. And I think it was in the parking lot between the base gym and the arena.
Oh, yeah.
For listeners who are not familiar with the layout of CFB Edmonton, the base gym has a very, very large field house. So it's like a 3-story, almost like a warehouse kind of type structure, and there's a running track and fitness mezzanine for treadmills and exercise bikes. It's a very, 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 very large facility, about the size of maybe say like imagine a covered soccer field. It's kind of that big. So it's got a very tall roof. So the exterior wall is, let's say about 60, maybe 70 feet high. And so it was a good projection screen. And so during COVID, they projected an image onto it. And then I think they just broadcast on one of the AM bands. So people in their cars could, just like the old days, tune in
Probably
the radio
FM,
station. And it was so successful, they run 1 or 2 a year doing that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I think actually what you just brought up there is a great way for us to actually start helping define our demographic. Because anyone who's listening to this, if you're going to put into the comments whether or not you knew what Patty was talking about, and if you don't, why you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Is this something you ever experienced, or something you've only ever heard of or just seen in films?
And I guess, and it's getting about time to close things down here, unfortunately.
My fault.
No, no. I mean, I think, so getting back to my opening point, if we haven't fulfilled the mandate of Radio Free Digression in this episode, because I want to talk about Israel, and I think
I killed you.
That's the second time the word Israel has come up. We went
from. I was actually marveling at the speed that we went from them talking about the Middle East, Alberta, domestic politics. We were there within 2 minutes.
Man, I'm usually thinking of myself as the guy trying to keep it on track, and I threw you guys under the bus so hard today.
I'm leaning towards this hour has 22 digressions.
Oh my God!
But okay, I don't know if it gets sued by the Communist
Talk to me about Israel. Come on, help me out.
No,
do it, dude.
That's next episode.
This is my only redemption. You've got 3 minutes. Come on, help me out.
He's actually got 16, but
no, because that is 11 minutes slow.
Oh, there you go. Okay, 3. Let her rip.
No, 10 minutes.
Quit stalling, man. Tell me. Talk to me about Israel.
There's no way we can talk about Israel.
We can. I'm not going to interrupt
6 minutes.
You're going to tell us what you think, and I'm going to nod here. I promise I will not say a word.
I wouldn't want to do that to you.
I swear to God.
I cannot have...
Trent!
I'm not going to have your head exploding all over the place because I can't stay to clean up the mess.
Serenity now. Trent, tell me what you think.
Well, no. Next episode, we need to talk.
No, teaser. You got to let people know what we're going to talk about, and it's not going to be for a while. So if you leave me hanging, my head's going to explode if you don't. Trent, I'm begging you.
Well,
Don't make me get on my knees, Trent, because I'll do it. I will
After-
beg you. I will beg you. Trent, please.
What's it been?
Trent,
Almost 14 months.
Trent, please.
Okay, I'm trying to now. Right? So, I mean, it's just, again, falling into that gray zone between the polarities. You know, just I'm sympathetic to Israel, and I'm disgusted with Hamas and its supporters. I'm disgusted with the blind support Hamas has been given simply because it has now become the poster child of Palestine, right? I do support a two-state solution. I feel for both sides. I feel that both sides should exist. You know, the irony of the fact that without the Holocaust, which was an abhorrent thing to happen, Israel probably wouldn't exist. Certainly not in the form that it does.
So what do you figure? Give me your next. What do you think for your next 30 days?
I'm unhappy with Israel's response.
Yeah.
I was unhappy with Netanyahu's government ahead of time. I don't like how Israel is behaving at this point. Like you've brought up, like, well, they don't give a shit about world opinion.
They don't.
And I get that they don't.
But you're
and
talking
I get that
about
they don't to a
right
certain
and
extent,
wrong.
but that doesn't mean that they shouldn't behave better.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, it doesn't give them like a moral absolution.
Right. So in this really, really weird area right now, you know.
What do you what do you think is going to happen over the next, say, 30 days and 60 days? Throw some darts.
Well, Hezbollah's already made peace. They've withdrawn north of the Litani.
Yeah. Has Israel accepted?
Oh yeah, they've withdrawn.
Okay.
So it's an open question as to whether or not any sort of peace with Hamas in Gaza can be achieved.
Is there still shooting going on in Gaza?
As far as I know.
Okay.
There's.
I'm not.
Bibi is still insisting on absolute defeat of Hamas and return of all the hostages.
Right. Oh, right. Still hostages. Still. Jeez, that's a long time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's just over 100 left still.
Good God, that's a lot of people for this long.
Well, unaccounted for. But
unaccounted.
Whether or not they're.
Yeah. How many are still alive is anyone's guess. Yeah.
You know. Anyways, they seem to be inching towards a potential peace, depending on who you're listening to at any given time. I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't think it's in Bibi's interest. How
about Hamas?
I think it's been in their interest for a long time.
Do you think they're ready to come to the table?
More ready than Israel will be. I think they've lost a lot of faith with their own people.
Within the Palestinian community?
Yeah. And logistically, they're just getting hammered.
How about Iran?
Iran's just in a weaker and weaker position all the time. Their proxies getting the shit kicked out of them. They've been embarrassed. Hezbollah was embarrassed by the whole pager then walkie-talkie thing.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
And then the guest.
Yeah.
The guest that was killed, right into Iran.
Israel retaliated against Iran for their latest attack, right? What form did that take?
I'm trying to remember. It was
has Israel made one airstrike against Iran or two?
There was one event, but it was multiple targets.
Okay, so they haven't done a second attack against Iran. It's only the one. Okay. Because Iran launched two attacks against Israel, right? They launched an attack, Israel retaliated, then Iran launched another attack, but I don't know how severe it was.
I don't remember hearing about a second one. I know.
Okay, so it's just one for one?
I think it's just one for one. Although there was another attack on Bibi's residence in Galilee. I think sometime in another drone attack, I think, in the last couple of weeks.
Right. Didn't come to anything?
I don't think so.
Israelis defeated it?
He wasn't home.
Wasn't home. That was one thing that sure came out of that is you look at the effectiveness of Russian strike packages against Ukraine, and they're very effective.
Yeah.
And then you look at the identical weapons, the identical methods being employed by the Iranians against Israel and completely ineffective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it really makes you realize, think about, okay, what would that war be like if the West really contributed? Like, or if Ukraine had Israel's air defense
Yeah,
system.
they need the Iron Dome. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I know a lot of guys are all talking about, oh, the Ukraine war is going to change everything in warfare. I really don't know about that. Okay, we'll leave that for next episode.
Yeah. We need to go.
Boys.
We're bumping into Trent's heart out. So
Okay.
to the 45 to 59-year-old, 100% male audience of 5 or 6 people who we're pretty sure are pretty personally known to all of us, thanks for listening.
All right, cheers.
Ciao.
Like everyone.